the goal isn't sex. The goal isn't orgasms. The goal is connection. That's what you want when you think you want sex. When you think you want sex, you want connection. When you think you want sex, you want connection. I feel like it's really important, so I have to say it a few times.
You're watching Flow State, conversations with athletes, artists, and entrepreneurs about the ups and downs of their lives, totally immersed in doing what they love. My name is Nick Willicke. I'm the host of the show, and I'm also the co-founder of Sojin, where we make herbal and CBD tinctures for a healthier brain and nervous system. Today, I am super excited and grateful that I had the opportunity to speak to Hunter O'Connor and Alberto Bercich from the Connection Coaches. The reason I'm so excited about this conversation is because Hunter and Alberto provide mentorship and coaching for individuals and couples who want to connect better with their partner, enjoy deeper communication, and more fulfilling intimacy, and ultimately have healthier, more fulfilling relationships, whether those are romantic relationships or friendships. The reason I'm so excited about this conversation is that many of our listeners have gone through significant periods of transition over the past years, whether that's a breakup, the start of a new relationship, maybe the kids have left home and now you find yourself with significantly more time with your significant other than previously. Maybe there's some changes in your career, you're starting a new job or you're returning to work, or perhaps just our bodies are changing or your body is changing a little bit, and that's creating changes in your relationships as well. What I love about this conversation is that Hunter and Alberto's approach starts with better understanding yourself as an individual and what you want in life. So it's a great conversation regardless if you're single or in a relationship, or if you have an amazing relationship and things are great right now, or things are a little bit tough, things are a little bit rocky. This is a great episode to help you better understand your relationship with yourself and your relationship with other people. Before we dive in, today's episode is brought to you by the Sojin Holiday Bundle. The Holiday Bundle includes 3 of our best-selling tinctures at Sojin, our sleep, focus, and calm tinctures, all for just $99. And if you order it today and use the code RUSH at checkout, RUSH, you can get free 2-day express shipping, so you can get it in time for the holidays to gift it to a friend, family member, or significant other. With that said, let's dive into the episode. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. One of the things that I've noticed with a lot of therapy work is that oftentimes some therapists will feel the need to revisit the trauma all the time. And I found that in and of itself can just take so much time and be so triggering. You know what I mean? Because if each time you experience something in your present day that brings up those memories, and then you need to go back and relive that experience on a daily basis, that in and of itself will kind of take up your full day. So,
yeah, I mean, it's really like re-traumatization to go to revisit it, to relive them, really.
Exactly.
Yeah. Our subconscious doesn't know the difference between it really happening and us thinking about it happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's
really where is the focus at, and I think it's great to go back there to get it at the root, but to rewrite the story into a positive focus so that you can focus on the positive of that experience, even though it was a tough experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You want to focus on the positives, not the negatives, because if you focus on the negatives, you're just going to attract more of that into your being.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we do a lot of reprogramming, right? Because that's what's happened. That's what our brain knows is algorithms and programs. And so we're all programmed to believe a certain way and feel a certain way about certain situations, and we can reprogram our brains by just being consistent with our thoughts and consistent with the practices we're doing. We can rewire the way we feel about certain situations. And there's something we do with the traumas where the first one that kind of comes up is usually kind of like the core of it all. And so whatever just comes up for the person. And so we usually trust that. And then we move into it what is the fear, or where is the resentment, or the rejection. And when we go and visit that person that like always we've carried as the person who caused the trauma, we work in this space of like, how can we, and it's really hard, how can we thank that person?
Thank that person.
Thank that person. This is really like, it's extreme, right? But how can we find the positive that came out of it? How can we find the lesson that we gained that we've always had the rest of our lives? And of course, there's like a negative thing we can say, but there's also a positive thing we can say. Like, I had a client who had her best friend in school. She was like in elementary school. Her best friend in school, like, turned against her and got all of the other girls to turn against her too. They had a club against her, right? And that was like the first thing that came up for her. Like, that was the first time she felt this like horrifying feeling that she didn't belong, that she wasn't loved, right? And we went back and we looked at it. And it was like, what did you gain there? And at first she's like, nothing. Like, I was in 4th grade and my best friend turned against me. And I was like, I know what the negative was, but what was the positive that you gained? And she thought about it for a minute, and then she was like, I really learned how to be happy, like spending time with myself. Like, genuinely, not like I was like only doing it because I didn't have a choice, but like, I like spending time with myself. I still really like spending time with myself. And I was like, how beautiful, right? It's really hard for some people to spend time on their own. And so she was able to go back and thank that girl for showing her that she could spend time by herself, that she didn't really need anything outside of herself. And when we can train our brains to look at a trauma as an experience that actually helped us in the long term, it's amazing what can happen.
Right.
It's amazing what can start happening in our bodies and our nervous systems,
Yeah. I think this, and for me personally, like one of my biggest, deepest traumas was losing my father very young, watching him have a heart attack, and he passed away. And
wow.
It took me a long time. It's been a long healing journey. And for a long time, I thought connection hurts, because that's what I had ingrained in my brain from that experience. Like, connecting to something is beautiful, but it hurts. But in the lesson that it has taught me, which is such a beautiful, segue into our connection coaches, is that connection actually heals. Like, true connection actually heals. Connecting to yourself and connecting to others in a new way. And it taught me how to actually authentically connect. And I think that every day, that's the person I am today for that experience, even though it was so hard, even though it's such a big experience to have and nobody wants to have it, but everybody's going to go through loss in their life. Everybody is going to go through trauma. It is a part of the human experience. So we need to flip the script a little bit on it. It's not just a negative. It's not just a negative. It's a part of our experience. We're here to learn from it and to grow from it. And I love to share that. And I love to help people reconnect to themselves. And from that connection to themselves, once your connection to yourself is strengthened, your connection to everybody else, the planet, people, animals, all improves.
Yeah, that's true.
I love the way you said everybody is going to experience trauma. It's a part of the human experience, because that's such a humanizing thing to say.
Yeah.
Because it takes it from being something that's like, oh, like, I'm ashamed because this is only me, and it's isolating to me, and I'm ashamed of this trauma and this weight of this, and it's just too much for me, and I'm so different and more, fucked up, than everybody, And I love the way you said that. It's like, no, it's actually trauma is just, you're a human being, you know, and like,
There's
when you look at
something
it that way, it goes from being something that I feel like it liberates you. It goes to being something that you can close the door on, right?
Yeah.
You can say, you know what? I want to heal. I want to heal. I'm going to heal. I'm going to give myself permission to heal from
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
and turn the page, close the door, whatever. And I'm going to be, I mean, I love what you said, Hunter, too, about how I think it's really cool and brave to just say, hey, actually, I'm not gonna, you know, in a romantic relationship or a friendship, to be able to say, hey, I'm not gonna talk about those things. I'm not gonna, you know, those are past things, and I'm not gonna bring that into our relationship. You know what I
There's
mean? Like,
nothing beneficial, right? I mean, there's nothing beneficial that it can do. Like if Berto and I have a fight about whatever, and it's 6 months later, and we're fighting about something right now, and I bring up something from 6 months ago. I mean, like, we're not even the same people we were 6 months ago.
Yeah.
First of all, and second of all, like, what is that going to do for the issue right now? Like, how is that going to help you resolve what's happening right now? It's not. And how can he feel open and vulnerable and gentle with me if I'm attacking him with something from the past that isn't even happening right now?
You're like, oh, we were past that, but now we're keeping score.
Right, and now, well, yeah, and now we're keeping score. That is it, right? And also now we're dealing with the issue that's happening now, and the issue that's happening 6 months ago, and anything else that might get brought up.
Yeah.
Which just takes you away from the root at hand, whatever that may be, and it's always an internal.
Yeah.
It's always an internal conflict within one or the other.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing to, like, it's liberating, it's empowering for our couples to come to that realization that it's not all of this stuff in between them. Usually it's just the petty little stuff that keeps getting, brought up or flared up, but it's the long-standing things within, the long-standing trauma that hasn't been dealt with or reframed. And that's liberating. It's empowering.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, and how freeing to, like, realize it's like, part of it is like, oh shit, it's all me. Like, crap, right? Like, that's like, once we start working with them as individuals and taking them out of the scope of everything is happening in this bubble between us. And we're like, you're in a bubble by yourself now. And I'm going to show you what you're also bringing, right? Because it's easy to be like, if Berto would just do something better, then we wouldn't even have an attitude, or, right? It's easy to do that. It's, like, not as easy for us to go, I see how I could have communicated that better. I see how I was triggered and didn't tell him that, and so how was he supposed to know? Right? I can see how I'm not being vulnerable, so he can't treat me any other way. And so when we start realizing that, like, we are creating our reality, we are creating our reality. We have always been creating it, and we're still creating it at every moment that we're alive. So I can put it on him, but it's never going to solve it because he's not creating my reality.
I feel like that's a good segue to this. Like, second question I had is, where we're kind of on the topic of trauma, but sort of transitioning, is you spend time in trauma, right? That's kind of where you start, or you start with the individual when you do your connection coaching. How do we as human beings, how do we relate to our trauma in a healthy way? And we've kind of talked about this a little bit, as like, hey, it's, there's a time to turn the page, there's a time to close the door. But, like, as you pointed out, you're always kind of bringing it into the interaction, and so, how do you teach people, or how do we as human beings, do you feel like, relate to our trauma in a healthy way, or build or construct a healthier relationship with that kind of past part of us?
I don't think that we should relate to our trauma. I think that we should always be just looking at the feeling, like how did that feel? But how, more importantly, like how did it benefit me? It's really like a reframing of like, okay, what can I learn there? Like a lot of times I ask myself, and like, you can't always be perfect, right? Like sometimes something really shitty happens and you're like you lose all your tools that you know, right? But I try to pretty often, if something comes up, I like say, what is this teaching me?
You got to thank it, right?
You know, like, what is this teaching me? And I kind of just sit with that. I kind of just put the intention out there to like know what I'm being taught right now. Like, right now, I mean, I'm in the middle of processing trauma right now. I just lost my father really unexpectedly. And he was young and had no health issues, right? And like, you don't even know, there are no tools for this, right? Like there are no tools for that, for losing a parent unexpectedly. But even now, like the space I'm in is like, what can I learn here? And like, what can I learn about the specific situation, but also what can I learn as I witness the grief I'm going through?
Yeah.
Right. So like, how can I learn through my own grief to better support people who are grieving? You know, and it's like, I can already see, and I'm still grieving, that I'm gaining compassion. I never could have imagined what this feels like. You can't imagine what it feels like. And of course, I'm with Berto, and Berto lost his father like even way sooner than I did, right? And I was sad for him, and I held space for like the fact that happened in his life. But you have no idea what that feels like until it happens. And so I look back at a lot of my, I don't really now, but I used to look back at a lot of my trauma, and like every time what came up for me was, now I understand what it is to go through this experience, right? And then I ended up being a women's empowerment coach for a decade and holding ceremonies with women where we were doing trauma release. And I wouldn't know from a place inside of me what these women were talking about, you know, unless I went through it. Like, I've been in a super physically abusive relationship for a lot of years, you know. I've had people do things to my body that I wasn't okay with, right? Like, I've had a lot of experiences that you can't imagine unless you've been through them. So like, how could I be the person who has been able to hold space without having those experiences myself, and learning how to move out of them and through them. And so now my traumas are my gifts.
And is that because of the ability to, is it because of the ability to relate to people who are going through something similar now? Is that ultimately what you see as a gift? Or talk a little bit more about that? Because you both have mentioned, you know, that trauma is a gift or can be a gift. And that's just so interesting. I
think a little of both sides. Like, I think that it's a gift because I am a kind and compassionate and loving being. And I think that I wouldn't be as deeply as I am without a lot of the experiences I've had, because it's like, I know what it is to be walking around still living life when you're like shattered in a million pieces.
Yeah.
And I know that like any person could look at me and never know what I'm going through. And so that's how I view other people.
Like, I love that. I love the forward-looking nature of what you are doing as connection coaches. I love it. There's a good Albert Einstein quote, which is life's like riding a bicycle. You can only balance when you're moving.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
that.
And the other side is that I do think that the biggest traumas that we go through, and then the process that we go through to heal from those things and to grow from those things, can be our greatest gift. If everybody, I think that if everybody in the world, right, went through whatever process they needed to heal and then shared that, like that's their gift. Like that's their gift to give back to the world. Like if you can go through, if you can be married for 20 years in an abusive relationship and you can get out of it, get yourself healthy, right? Like all these things. How did you do that?
Yeah.
There are other people that need to know how you did that.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean. It's like gift because all the traumas I've gone through are a part of why I'm an expert.
Yeah.
I'm an expert because I've studied all these things and I've done all these things, but I'm also an expert because I've lived a lot of what these couples are going through. I've been married and divorced. I've done it. I've done a lot of it. So I can understand from where they are.
Yep.
I know what it's like to be in their shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good segue into I want to talk more about relationships. Communication. It's the lifeblood of a healthy relationship, and something you guys have talked about a lot is healthy communication. And one of the hardest things about communicating, like whether it's like a friendship or like with a family member or in a romantic relationship, but I feel like especially in just those really vulnerable relationships where you care a lot about the other person, is once it starts to hurt a little bit, right? At that point, is kind of staying open and staying vulnerable and hearing the other person out and not withdrawing. So that's something I wanted to ask the two of you about is in relationships, like romantic relationships, what is it that you think or that you see with the people that you work with? What is it that causes us to withdraw, to hold back and kind of try to defend ourselves?
It has nothing to do with communication.
Okay.
Communication is super important. Okay. Like it's so important. But the first thing that we have to get a good handle on is connection. That's why we're the connection coaches, right? Because if you can work on your connection with another person, this builds safety, trust, all of these things. Automatically, if you feel deeply connected, it's easier to talk, right? It's easier to talk to each other. It's easier to be vulnerable.
I feel like
easier
that's true, but I don't know what you mean by connection exactly.
So, okay.
Here. Yeah.
Okay, so connection is like intimacy, right? It's not like sexual necessarily, but like you're consciously deciding to do things that develop connection. So you're taking time dedicated to there's nothing else that we're doing but being together.
Connection is presence.
Yeah. Presence.
Being
it's
present with each other.
It's sitting down for 5 minutes in the morning every day and staring into each other's eyes, right? Doing a practice we share with our clients. It's one of the first things we share. It's called soul gazing. And you look left eye to left eye, and this connects our emotional brains. Right? And when you look into the eyes of someone, like the eyes never change. So this is like a true space to view someone from.
Right.
And so just simple things like that, right? Or like making sure you have date night every week. Giving each other a massage, and sometimes it's like you're already pissed and you don't really want to do those things.
So is connection kind of like,
go ahead.
Is connection kind of like, so it's presence. Is that kind of like your ability to be with each other without even speaking? Is that kind of what you is that a good proxy for it? A good way for people to think about it?
Right? That's a deep connection.
You don't have to speak to be connected.
No, you don't. But
Okay.
yeah, you don't have to speak to be connected.
Because
right?
sometimes I feel like with a really tight friendship, like a really good friendship, it's like, it's that friendship where you can just hang out there and you don't have to say anything.
Yeah, and that's a deep connection, right? And like it's the smallest things. I mean, that's what's crazy. Is like so much stuff gets blown into this like huge thing, like this is an issue in our relationship, but there are couples who are like literally one day from getting divorced, right? And then they decide, like, listen, before we just let's do one thing, right? Like, let's do one thing. Let's sit down with each other and just do what makes us feel good, right? Just offer each other a massage, take some deep breaths together, right? And allow ourselves to feel good together, right? Because like when we're going back and forth, we're having miscommunications, we're going back and forth, there's like no joy.
Yeah.
There's like no joy in our relationship because all of it is like either fighting or kind of avoiding each other's normal level of connection, right? Mm-hmm. Physical touch, like just sitting like this, right? Is more like I feel more connected to him, not just physically, but like emotionally, I feel more connected to him here than if I'm sitting on the other end of the couch, right? And he has his arm around me, like he's, and so it's the smallest things that can make us feel connected, but it has to be intentional. We have to make time for it. We have to put presence in our schedule. We're so busy. We're on our phones. We're on the computer. We're like watching TV. And it's like, people think they don't have time. A lot of times I have people come to me and I'm like, well, what do you think you need more of in your relationship?
Time.
Yeah.
And they say time. And so they're under the belief that they don't have time to date each other, to spend time together, to develop that deep connection, to get that spark back, right?
Yep. And you're like, you don't have time not to.
That first of all, that's always like, do you have time to not do those things? But secondly, everyone has time.
We all have the same amount.
We all have time. I would like to talk to any person. Like, send me a DM if this is you. You don't spend ever even 10 minutes scrolling on your phone.
Guarantee you, everybody listening does that. At least.
If you don't spend 10 minutes on your phone, send me a private message. I need to know. I need to know what your secret is. So we have 10 minutes minimum. We all have 10 minutes. 10 minutes every day can radically change your life when it comes to your relationship.
Yeah.
Radical. And then chances are, like, you're going to spend more than 10 minutes pretty quick.
Yeah.
Because it feels good. And this is what I was talking about when I was talking about the reward-based stuff, right? We can work through all of our traumas and tit for tat. Well, you did this and you did this, and we can do that. But all that's going to do is make it like,
right.
Because that's the energy of it. Like, if we're bringing up all the stuff that upsets us about each other, then we're going to feel that again in our body. If we decide to turn all the lights down and like light some candles and lay out some pads like on the ground and give each other massages and just like be present, no phones, no show on, just here together. That is going to change. Like, even if we were fighting yesterday, like, that is going to do everything for our relationship, especially compared to rehashing whatever. Also, if I'm feeling deeply connected to him, if he's feeling deeply connected to me, we're not fighting about little stuff.
Yeah.
If we're already not feeling connected to each other and he does one little thing, I'm like, right? Like, It's like, that's why, like, the first step is really connection.
Why did you leave that sock on the floor?
Right. That really happens in our house. I'm like, Berto, your socks, why?
No, I want to bring it to where you said the withdrawal. I want to like make a little connection.
Yeah.
We withdraw because we're triggered most of the time. Something internally is going on. We're triggered. And something Hunter said the other day, which I just think is the most beautiful statement, is anytime that you're triggered is an opportunity to be vulnerable. It's a choice. It is a conscious choice. We choose everything that is in our lives. So when we're in that space, instead of choosing to withdraw and to just sit in that energy and just let it keep going, we can choose to share from our heart. We can choose to let the other person, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, in exactly where you're at. Meet me where I'm at, because I'm having a really hard time. This is actually not anything between us. I'm really stressed out at work,
right.
Or I'm having issues with my family, or my children have been getting in trouble at school, or whatever it is. These are the things that are like really coming up. Mm-hmm. It's an opportunity to be vulnerable. That breeds connection. And when you're vulnerable, that opens the space for your partner to
support you better.
Support you and meet you right there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, there's another story from our clients is like, there was like, right, they're having a great day. They're driving around, they're running errands. Like, the husband decides he's going to do this little project in their bathroom, and he doesn't feel very handy, right? Like, that's not really his thing. He's not like a Mr. Fix-It type.
Okay.
And
he's probably a little insecure about this, maybe, or sensitive.
For him, it's a spot of insecurity for sure. And so he's thinking about that. Like, what if I fuck it up? You know what I mean? Like, what if I totally mess everything up right now? Like, but he's communicating to his wife, like, I'm going to do this thing. Like, I got this tool. It's going to make it even easier. Right. And she, out of no malice at all, says, like, well, if it's going to be way easier, like, maybe we could just take care of the whole thing. Right. So now she's like asking him to do a bigger project, and he flipped out. And in his space, he was like, why would she ask me that? Like, she knows.
She doesn't appreciate what I'm doing?
No. It was like, she knows that I'm not confident doing stuff like this. And I was like, does she know, or did you tell her? And he was like, well, she knows. And I was like, does she know, or did you tell her? Because right there was an opportunity for you to be vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
Instead of you getting angry at her, what could have happened is you could have been like, let me see if I don't fuck up what I'm already trying to do.
Yeah.
Right? Let me see if I can get through this before I even consider doing anything else.
Totally cool, dude.
Right? And which would have been fine. And his wife probably would have they probably both would have gotten to laugh and find joy in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, he took it personally, and she was so confused because she didn't ask that question out of malice. She was just like, he seemed like he was pretty confident. So I was like, let's do it, babe. Right? Like,
she's like, what did I do? What did I say? What happened?
So when he was triggered, he had such an opportunity right there to be vulnerable. And if he would have been vulnerable, instead of it turning into a fight where now he feels even less connected to his partner, he could have ended up feeling more connected to her because they got to like joke and be silly, and like, she could have supported him there instead of supporting him from a place where she thinks he's confident.
Yeah. Like, do you want to get better at this? Is it just not your thing? Do you not like doing it? Like, whatever, like, it's like a personal thing. I don't see you as inadequate at all for not wanting this, or
right.
maybe
that's exactly it. Like, we've worked through quite a bit of that, like, she doesn't even care about her husband being a handy person. Like, we can just hire someone, you know? Like,
so let's say in that situation,
a man Like, it's not a man just because you can fix things or because you can't. Like, that's doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Let's say in that situation though, she was the woman said to him, like, actually, I do find that really attractive. Like, I do find that really attractive. Like, that would mean a lot to me, actually, if you could do that. If you could, like, how would you navigate something like that? Like, what would you say, like, to him or to her, like, because I imagine that, yeah, like, what would you say to him in the situation?
I can't really imagine someone that's like coming from a truly loving place really caring at all if their partner can do a certain something, right? Like, we all have our strengths. I mean, I don't know.
To me, it's just another opportunity to be vulnerable,
yeah.
Just to communicate where you're at. And, it comes to me, the communication piece. I have learned so much from children about communication. Sometimes you have to go at it like you're talking to a 6-year-old. You got to be just this straight, clear, and direct about it, and it's just, and be easy about not having to say the perfect words all the time, but like communicating from the heart. Because then when you communicate from the heart, it is received. And
and just trying to be clear, really doing your best to be clear, and not expecting your partner to know when you haven't clearly communicated that. Not saying like saying something like, I don't like that, versus saying, that's actually really traumatic to me when you do that, right? Like, that's a very different thing. Like, maybe you don't like something, and like, that should still be honored. I'm not saying it shouldn't be, but it's not as like clear, right? Not liking something and something feeling very traumatic for you is very different. And so it's small things like that where we have to be clear. We have to be clear. And if we are too worked up to be clear, then we need to take space so that we can get clear.
That's why we teach a lot of different tools and exercises to help reground yourself, because
and just regulate your nervous system. Then talk about it. Regulate your nervous system and then talk about it. And taking space is huge. Knowing when you need to take space yourself, or even knowing how to communicate, like, hey, do you need some space right now? Right? Sometimes it's hard to ask for it, and it's your responsibility to ask for it. But when you're being a sweet partner, sometimes you might say, like, hey, do you need some space right now? Right? And that feels safe. Like, that can feel very safe to say, hey, like, I just need some space. We'll talk about it. Like, I'd like to talk about it later, but right now I just need some space so that I can get clear. And we always say two of the most important things are space and grace, right? Because as we're healing,
space and grace.
As we're learning these practices and these ways of rewiring our brain that none of us have been taught. Like, none of us have been taught about conflict resolution. None of us have been taught about processing our emotions in a healthy way. None of us have been taught how to communicate in a way that is clear.
It's mind-boggling, but so true.
None of us have been taught this, not in our normal education. If you had awesome parents, cheers, that taught you those things. Awesome. But if you didn't, there was nowhere else to learn this, right? There was nowhere else. Like, if you're our age or older, especially, we did not have, like, we could not Google everything on our phones and like all these things. Like, we didn't have access to all this information. Now there's so much information, it's overwhelming, and you don't know where to start. Like,
so one thing that you said,
a lot of people come to us because all the information that we teach is out there. I can tell you, you can get on the internet and find every single thing we teach, right? However, you will find so many things, you won't know where to start. And you'll start doing this, and you'll read this self-help book, and you'll watch this girl on YouTube, and then you're just like, you're trying to do so many things at once, nothing's really working. And no one's holding you accountable. And that's it. Like, it's the accountability and like taking out the guesswork so that you can just take a step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
But
One foot in front of the other.
Being aware of taking space and grace for yourself and your partner.
Yes.
Like, you have to treat yourself like you're a child, basically. Like, if you wouldn't say however you're talking to yourself in your head, if you wouldn't say that to you when you were like 7, you shouldn't be saying it to yourself.
Yeah.
Especially when we're talking about like, how well are we changing how we're communicating and changing how things that we've been doing our whole life. Probably starting when we were 7, right? Or whatever age, but so
something that I like that you said, Hunter, was you talked about in that example that you gave of like the couple where the guy is doing some like that repair work. You talked about how like, I don't know if this was in reference to that, but you talked about like communicating, is this something I just don't like, or is this something that's traumatic to me? Is this something that's like, how deep how do I feel about this? Like, how important is this to me? How deep is this to me? And like getting, having that kind of level of deep, vulnerable communication, like as a couple, where you're actually talking about like, you're open sharing something that is so important to you that you feel like might actually make the other person uncomfortable, right? Or make the other person be like, oh, like, I don't know how I feel that way. Because I feel like that's a really scary thing to do in a relationship. But I feel like it's a really healthy thing to do too, because it's like being authentic and true to yourself too. It's like, hey, like, this is not something that like, I like am into this, or I'm not into this. And we could, this is kind of, I feel like a natural segue into like talking about like sexual conversations and like intimacy in that way in relationships, but communicating what you like and being okay with that's who you are as a person, you know what I mean? And then a possibility that people might not everybody will receive that the way that you would hope for whatever reason. Maybe it's they give you a healthy response, or maybe they don't give you a healthy response. Most of the time, I feel like people are a lot more empathetic and understanding than we fear, but sometimes they're not. And those are the painful situations that I feel like do keep us, that happened as a kid, probably, that keep us from being so authentic and true to ourselves. But
but what we find, right? Like, we get to this place in our lives where we've been people pleasing and like not saying what we mean for so many years.
Yep.
And we realize that nothing has been more damaging than us not claiming what we desire.
Not honoring yourself.
How are you going to get what you want if you won't say it's what you want? No one is going to read your mind and just give it to you. You have to be like, this is what I want. And this is what I don't want. And this is what I don't like, right? And if your partner is a good partner for you, the right partner for you, whatever we want to say here, then there will always be able to be some kind of space for it, right?
Yeah.
And maybe some kind of exploration of it. And if not, well, then you just have to decide, like, is that really, like, is it a deal breaker for you for them to not like it? Like, maybe we're not going as far yet as the sexual stuff. We'll get there. But like, Berto loves to ski, right? He loves skiing. He's like super cool at it. And I hate the snow.
We got to get some shred sessions in.
Yeah, you guys would have a great time. So
anytime.
First of all, I don't really like any extreme sports. Like, I'm too scared. I have a back injury now, so I just like can't do any of those things. It like freaks me out. But and I also don't like being cold, and I also don't want to wear like all that gear. Like, nothing about it appeals to me, right? So like, I'm not going skiing with Berto. And I told him that, like, from the beginning, like, I'm never going to do that with you. I'm never going to do that. I'm not going to do it. I might go and like sit in like the resort while you ski or something.
Drink some hot chocolate or a Bloody Mary.
Yeah. Drink some cacao. But like, that's no problem. It's okay, because like, I'm like, you can still go.
Yeah.
And he's been teaching my son. He's been teaching our boy how to ski. So
nice.
He's raising himself up a little buddy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And that's okay.
I'll go with you anytime.
I don't want to do it. I don't have any interest in it, really. but he really, really likes it. And like, it's not a deal breaker for us that he loves to ski and he's going to go spend time doing that. And I'm not gonna. Right?
Yeah.
And he could like hold strong to like, well, I want my partner to like do those kinds of things with me. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, it's so interesting.
What really is the, like, what do you really want out of a partner? Right.
What do you really want? Like, what do you really want? I feel like that's such an important question for people to ask themselves. What do you really want? What are your priorities? Like, you can't get everything from one person. You really can't. And I want to talk, that's such a good point. Before I go into this though, because I want to have something I want to say on that. But when you were talking there, Hunter, it really made me realize, I think, just kind of have a little bit of self-awareness about kind of my own sort of preconceptions that I bring into my relationships, especially if there's like if it's a romantic relationship, which is sort of like the societal expectation that a man be very manly. You know what I mean? And so when you gave that example of the guy not being able to fix something in the house, now it's making me think of when I was growing up. My dad was a very, like, he's a blue collar guy. He's a very work with your hands guy. If you are a man, you can fix anything. That's kind of, and I think I just internalized that so much that I was like, oh, well, I just assume that. And if somebody criticizes me in any way, in that way, I almost just assume, okay, it's warranted. I'm not manly enough. I'm not manly enough. I should be able to do that. But I think that, I don't know, you just kind of I appreciate that you gave me a little bit of self-awareness about that just right there in our conversation.
It's really common. It's really common.
Yeah.
Men are taught that like men can change the oil and change the tire and do all this stuff that we could pay somebody $35 to do. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I was raised, like, my dad taught me how to do all that stuff, right? Like, I know how to change oil and change a tire and whatever. I also am a very feminine woman, right? I'm not like a very masculine type. I don't really stay in my masculine. I live pretty in my feminine, but like, I know how to do manly things, right? I mean, it's so silly. It's so silly. And like, maybe there are a couple out there, but like, I've never met a woman that the top thing she wants out of a partner is he can fix shit. Never. Not one, not once, not one time have I heard a woman be like, I wish I could just find somebody who fixes shit.
Berto, chime in here, because I feel like you are.
I was just waiting for that.
Hit me. Yeah, chime in here.
There's a lot. There's so much with the masculine. I love doing this. I love that we have both aspects, the feminine and the masculine, to work with a feminine and a masculine, and to like redefine what that is. Old paradigm masculine is like, we're here to fix everything. We're here to fix you, And what you just did actually was one of the most masculine things you could do, is talk about your self-awareness and like give yourself permission to like feel how you felt about that.
And
be vulnerable. That's the most masculine thing you can do, is to be true to yourself. It's not
Thanks,
like,
bro.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
Like, it's big.
That's beautiful, and that's what real masculinity is standing in your power and saying what is true for you and what you feel, and not letting other things really get to you if it's a societal norm or an old paradigm thing. I do laundry. I fold clothes. Like, I'm just an adult human being. Like, we're all adult beings. Like, we all have things that we have to do and can't do, and we can't do it all. We literally, like, who is doing it all out here? Let me know. I'll send you $10 million if you're just doing it all out here, because you're doing it.
Yeah, I mean.
Thanks for that, man.
Yeah, of course.
The vulnerability is an important thing, and like that's what a woman is looking for in a man.
100.
Like what a woman is looking for 100%. In a partner. What anyone should be looking for in a partner is, are you open and ready to be vulnerable with me? If I don't get to know you, what are we doing here?
I'm going to bring in. Okay, so I want to bring in.
I don't know you, and that's just not living in our fullest.
I want to bring in some more of my preconceptions, and just bring them in, just talk about them in here, because so the man's got to provide preconception. That the man's the hunter-gatherer guy. The man's the big, strong guy. He's going to provide. He's tough. I can always turn to him and depend on him. And he's not going to be sensitive. He's not going to necessarily comfort me, but that's why I have my girlfriends. He's going to be the guy that's always strong. And we're going to make sure we're always okay. So that's so deep. Yeah.
That's the number one thing that breaks every man down until there's just nothing left and they're triggered and responding from a bad space for everything.
Left and right.
Let me just carry the weight of it all. I'll do it all. I see it all the time.
And here's the thing is, all men are stuck in this loop of beating themselves up so bad. Y'all's self-talk it's
bad out here.
Off the charts.
It's bad out here.
Like, it's off the charts because none of you are capable of being this man that everyone taught you should be. And I'll say it again. I'm not scared of it. None of you are capable of being that man that you all were taught you had to be. You have feelings.
Yeah.
You also can get your feelings hurt. You also went through trauma. You also need time where you can be soft. You are soft, whether you let us see it or not. We wanna see you in your softness and your strength.
Mm-hmm. It's both. It's a balancing act. It's also not the 1500s. Anybody can make money out here doing anything. And that's where you got to find your balance with your partner of what makes sense for both of you. What makes you both feel good in that conversation, you know?
Right. It can go any way. The woman can be the breadwinner. Like, either partner can be a breadwinner, right? Either partner can be the one who's fixing shit around the house or like working on the car. Like, it's 2022.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's 2022, okay? We can all do whatever we want. And like, it's so important to not hold your partner to this
impossible standard.
To this standard that you can only be masculine or feminine. We all contain a masculine and feminine energy. All of us.
Yep.
And like, sometimes Berto's having a hard time and he's like sad and he's down and he's not very productive and right? And like, those are the days that I show up more, that I nurture him, right? That like, amazing. I'm the rock, right? Like, it's okay.
Yeah. Like,
just take a day, just like lay down, like whatever, right? Or maybe like we're both having a bad day, so we just go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And like he is strong for me when I need him to be, but he's also soft for me when that's what I really need.
Mm.
Like, I don't usually need him to be strong for me. I usually need him to be soft for me.
Oh, that's so interesting.
I usually need him to be soft enough to listen.
Yeah. That's a huge thing with men is when the whole listening and when their partner is just giving them everything that's going on in their life and they're like, well, how am I going to fix this?
Right.
Again, back to the Mr. Fix-It thing.
And that's a soft space too. Like where he can be soft enough to stop trying to like what can I do? Like, what can I do? Like, is there something, do you want this? Do you want this? Like, can I, like trying to end it, trying to stop me from feeling what I'm feeling.
That's where it all goes wrong.
There was a wild time at the beginning of our relationship, right? Where I was processing a lot. He was processing a lot. Our relationship was very triggering for all of our shadows because it's a very safe place, the relationship that Berto and I are in. And our nervous systems had never experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to deal with a lot of our shadows that were like, this could not be true. Let's self-sabotage everything.
Let's do it.
Right? And so as I'm moving through all these things, like this stuff is coming up and I'm not really trying to give it to Berto. I'm really trying to process it on my own. But Berto won't leave me alone. He's following me. Like, can I help? What can I do? Blah, blah, blah. Right? And he's trying to fix me. And I can't, for some reason, I couldn't figure out how to say, like, this goes on for months, okay? This goes on for months. I, like, almost get to the place where we're not fighting constantly, but, like, it keeps coming back up, okay? I can't figure out how to just say, like, I need space. That's what I need. Like, he's, like, coming, bothering, like, getting me more worked up, like, leaving, coming back. And finally, one day, I was just like, I just need you to not fix me. I don't need you to fucking fix me. I'm not broken. I need to feel my feelings.
Yeah.
It's okay. There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
Let me be here.
Yeah.
Allow me. Get out of my space. But also, please don't leave the house. Right? And that's important. Like, being able to say, like, specifically what we need. Clearly, what we need. Like, I don't need you to leave the house. That might make me feel like a little triggered in a way too. But if you could just let me be in my bedroom, right? Like, let me be in our bedroom by myself for a while until I come out. Like, please don't come bother me or ask me anything or try to bring me anything. I don't want that. All I want is to be where I am and process my feelings. This doesn't have to be, and none of it was even between us. And it's like, that's what I couldn't, I eventually got there to be able to say, like, this has nothing to do with you.
Right.
Like, this has nothing to do with you, but you're making it between us because you won't just let me be where I am.
And Berto,
allow me space, right?
From your perspective, Berto, what is it? What is it about that interaction? Like, as you remember that, like, what is it about that you feel like kept pushing you to try to, like, connect with Hunter and try to fix her? Is it, what is that? Like,
it's like old paradigm programming. It was just that masculine thought in my brain, like, oh my gosh, she's having a really hard time. Like, what can I do to fix this? What can I do to fix this? Oh, I'm taking the things she's saying personally, or I'm assuming that I can do something to fix her. It doesn't work like that. That's the beauty. I think that's what we're here to teach and share, is our experiences of how we moved through all those things, and to be able to come to the awareness that I don't need to fix her. I don't need to fix it. I need to fix me, where I'm coming from. I need to check myself. I need to check where I'm coming from and just give the space. Just shut the fuck up and listen. Just shut up and listen. You don't need to respond to everything. You don't need to fix anything. You just need to be that presence that's a safe space for your partner to move through their emotions without judgment, without trying to fix it or to say something like, oh, maybe this will do this, or
there's so much like around us having feelings anyway, like that we shouldn't have these extreme feelings, that like me being super upset and throwing a tantrum in my bedroom is not healthy, right? Like, we've all been taught that, like, that kind of emotional expression is not okay.
It's not okay, like, kids.
This goes back to the days where they were, locking women up for being hysterical? Is that the word they used?
Yeah, hysterical.
Right? Like we're not supposed to have big feelings, which is crazy. Which is like crazy, because you know what happens when we don't express those big feelings out of our bodies? They stay in there and they make us sick. Unexpressed feelings, unexpressed emotions, fester.
Dis-ease.
That's where it comes from. It's these things that we just push down, we just squash it down and don't ever express it. And, like, I don't have to express my anger, even if my anger is with Berto, at Berto. I can go and physically express that anger. I can go, like, hit our punching bag or, like, scream at the top of my lungs into a pillow, right? And these are healthy expressions of anger, of rage, right? It's okay. I'm not hurting myself or anyone else.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, the space that I'm in before I scream until I don't have any scream left, and the space I'm in after that, there is no questioning, have I or not released, right? Released that emotion from my body.
Yes. And I think as a society, we just have to become more comfortable, because you think, a lot of people, even your son said, I don't want to scream because I don't want, like, the neighbors to hear me or anything like that. We have to look at it like, these people are expressing their emotions. As long as it's in a healthy way, as long as it's not, you're fighting each other and stuff like that.
As long as you're not harming anyone.
Yeah.
You are safe to express yourself.
I think that's a great point, is just, like, not apologizing. Like, if you're malicious Like if someone's malicious, I think that's an appropriate time to apologize. Hey, I'm really sorry. That was, I hurt you and I intended to hurt you, you know? But I think people often apologize like, oh, like, I'm so sorry. I'm a wreck right now. And it's like, oh, it's like that feeling that of, I'm so sorry that I'm not presenting to the world this like perfect, yeah, like how perfect I am. It's like, oh, it's sad, but I feel that too. You know, I feel that too. It's like, oh God, I'm so sorry that you have to see this. And it's like, no, like, show me this. Show me this. Like, I feel that the same way. I feel that same way too.
God, like, show me all you're human.
Show me that you're real.
Like, I love that. Like, I want to see you in like all of your human mess.
Yeah, all your messed upness.
Like that's
your perfect imperfections.
That's the beauty. Like all of this chaotic combination of a million things that make you you is all you. And so it's beautiful.
That's circling back to the trauma point. I love that you take such a forward-looking approach to the trauma, like kind of that Albert Einstein approach of like you balance by riding the bike. It's just like, it is imperfect and it's always going to be imperfect. And it never was perfect and it never will be, right? It's just like you keep riding that bike and experiencing those imperfections and those highs and lows and the pain and you just express that and you let that out because everybody's feeling that same way, you know? And it's just like,
give yourself the space and grace to process it.
Grace, Forgive yourself too. Like that's such a big one too, because people, it sometimes isn't even the original traumatic experience. It's the thought process that keeps coming up that you don't forgive yourself for the things that you did from that experience. You know, you gotta forgive yourself. Yeah. It doesn't do anything for anybody else. You're just holding that on. You're holding that hurt onto your own heart, your own being, your own spirit. Forgive yourself. Put the weight down. We're just out here carrying the weight of all the past.
Yeah. Let's tell the Arawak Bay story.
Yeah.
So we have a friend who is Arawak Indian from Jamaica.
Okay.
They barely exist as a population anymore. And he's really special. He's a musical artist and just like an all around incredible being. But we met him in Florida randomly on the street. It wasn't random. It was like divine. But,
it was very crazy.
But anyways, he comes and he pulls a pencil out of his pocket. He's a storyteller. So he's telling us a story. He pulls a pencil out of his pocket. Like, I need something in my hand. Okay.
That's perfect.
This will work. A drumstick. So he pulls it out of his pocket and he says, if I ask you to hold this out in front of you, right? You'll be like, okay, no problem. What's the big deal? I can hold this, whatever. He said, but in about 2 hours, your arm is going to start shaking, right? Your shoulder's going to start hurting.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and like, try holding it out there for 20 years.
Huh.
And the whole time, right? I asked you to hold this, but I never told you you couldn't put it down. So you could just put it down. You could just put it down. The thing you've been carrying for 20 years that is making your whole body shake, you could just put it down. Look at his face.
I love it.
Yeah. Like we overcomplicate all this shit. I could tell you a bunch of complicated practices and all these things that we could take you through. But the reality is you need to be focusing on joy, being present, what feels good. If you focus on what feels good, you'll get more of what feels good.
Say it louder for the people in the back.
If you do what feels good, you'll get more of what makes you feel good. If you focus on what's going wrong, it's going to continue going wrong. If you focus on how you're not good enough, you're going to keep getting evidence for how you're not good enough.
Right.
This is law.
Man.
So we also have to start claiming what we want. We have to claim
I just hear a sizzle right now.
We have to claim the joy we want. We have to claim the pleasure we want.
Mm-hmm.
We have to ask for it clearly. Clearly. This is exactly what I want. Whether we're talking to ourselves, the universe, our partner, someone that we're about to do business with, we need to be clear. We need to be clear. And we need to stop expecting people to know what's going on with us. They do not know what's going on unless you tell them.
That's a beautiful.
Even if they know you really well. Like sometimes I do know what Berto's thinking. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I know. But he can't expect that of me all the time. He still has to tell me. Sometimes he tells me things and I'm like, I know, right? but still he needs to tell me and I need to tell him because he can't know. Sometimes I'm in a whole thing and he doesn't really know what's going on and he thinks it's kind of like I'm upset with him and he'll finally be like, are you upset with me? Like what's, and I'm like, no, it's just this. Like, it's like, I just have to tell him what's actually going on with me and then boom, there's no issue between us.
Yeah.
And I know where to come from to support her in the way that she needs to. It's clarity. We're just looking for clarity out here.
Yeah. So put it down, put that weight down, nobody asks you to carry that for your whole life. And you have the ability to put down weight.
Right?
What's
Somebody
that?
just said, hey, do you want to hold this?
Yeah.
They never told you what you had to do after.
So I want to pivot a little bit. So I want to talk about a couple other topics. So I want to talk about advice for communication during times of transition. I want to talk about sex and emotional intimacy because I feel like there's such a good relationship there. We'll talk about that one and the masculine and the feminine. I want to talk about that. But one of the things I think about for our audience is times of transition are important for them, what they're going through in life, whether it's when their kids are leaving for college or when the kids are leaving for college or they're returning to work after not being in work, not working. Maybe they're caring for their parents, for the first time. And the relationship has changed from my parents used to care for me to now I care for my parents. And so I wanted to ask for, in your work, kind of how you think about communication with like a partner, a romantic partner during those periods of time where maybe like you all of a sudden have like so much more time with your partner, like you're like, oh, I used to have my kids here. Now my kids are gone. It's just me and my partner. And I feel like during COVID too, like if people started working from home, it's like, I used to be at work all day. Now I'm at home and we're at home together. And now that's hard. So I want to get your thoughts on that, like communication during these, because there are big transitions, how to navigate that. Any advice you have there?
Space and grace.
Space and grace.
I mean, space and grace, but also like really taking that time to intentionally connect, taking that time to intentionally be with each other and learn each other, right? This is the thing, like you might as well pretend you just started dating because who you were while your kids were in your house is not who you're going to be for the next 20 years of your life. And this is a beautiful thing. Like we don't have to view our relationships like, oh, we've been together for 50 years, nothing has changed. You know what I mean? Because that's just not true. No one goes 50 years being the same person, liking the same things, desiring the same things in life, in love, in the bedroom. Nobody stays the same.
Nobody stays the same.
And if they do, they're probably just not communicating that their desires have changed. Like if you think that they haven't changed, they just haven't communicated it. Because change is inevitable.
Yeah, I like the way you said that a bit earlier. You said, it's no point me and Berto arguing about a fight we had 6 months ago when we get into a fight today because we're not the same people as we were 6 months ago.
Yeah. I think a transition can be a beautiful opportunity to be vulnerable and to relearn each other. Yes. And to take it as like this opportunity to be on an adventure together. And the adventure is you. Yeah. The adventure is you. Like what? Oh my gosh. Like the kids are out of the house now. Like, let's relearn each other. Like, let's go on dates. Like, what do you want to do? Like, let's spice it up in the bedroom and try something new. Right? Let's start going to a cooking class. Now is the time to start really exploring other things that you love. You spent all those years, right? Maybe with your kids that you love, and that's a lot of your life. I know, because I'm a mom, right? And I know because I'm watching my mom right now, who is entering menopause and is taking care of her elderly parent. And I'm watching her right now in the space she's in, and how her hormones are shifting and how her emotions are shifting and how she's softening, actually, which isn't the case for, all women, but she's actually softening a lot right now and exploring a lot more about like how she feels about all these things that maybe she hasn't really thought about, Both of her parents are about to be gone, and we also just lost my dad, who was her person, And so I'm watching as she goes through all of the emotions of all of that. And the only thing I see that shifts her from like this space of this is all too much and unfamiliar and what do I do here is connection, And like just this morning, I drove over there just to have coffee with her, right? And she didn't ask me to do that. She's not falling apart. She's like one of those people that will carry it all. She's one of those people that will carry it all. And so I show up for her because the people that carry it all like that are usually hurting the most.
Yeah.
And so I showed up and we just had coffee, and it was soft, and it was time that we didn't have to think about all the things that we had to do. And my grandma was still sleeping.
Yeah.
And we had this just like maybe 45 minutes where we just sat and there was nothing else that we were doing except being with each other, drinking our coffee, talking, laughing. And when we hugged, when I was about to leave, we hugged for probably 2 minutes straight, right? Which literally things start happening in your body that is literally therapeutic when you hug someone for more than 30 seconds.
That's an awkward hug.
It releases happy hormones and all sorts of things.
Not with your mother, I'm sure, but with a friend, that's an awkward hug. That's like, you get past the awkward stage. That's like the awkward hug, where you're like, just keep holding on to me, keep holding on to me. And then you're like, okay, it's awkward. Okay, it's not awkward anymore. It's not awkward anymore. It just feels great.
Yeah, you have to get through the awkward phase. And we have to stop thinking long hugs are awkward, because we actually need 8 to 12 hugs a day to be healthy.
So
8 to 12 hugs a day is what we truly need as humans. For us to feel connected, for us to feel happy and loved and all these things in our body, our body chemical makeup needs 8 to 12 hugs a day. So if you can't get 8 to 12, you better make sure that one you get is long, And there is no awkward, if that's your friend and you love them, this could be the last time you hug them. You never know. You never know. So hug your people, hug your partner, kiss them before you go to bed. Even if you're mad. Even if you're mad. Because you never know.
This is my take on the transition period, is that you just have to ask yourself, what do you want through each transition? You're going to change all the time. What do you want? What do you want your relationship to look like? It's a space to communicate with the people, your family or your partner or whoever is in your life that you're dealing with, your coworkers, whatever it is. What do you want? How do you want to feel during this period of time as you move into a new period of your life? What do you got to ask yourself? You got to get clarity within yourself.
And be willing to communicate it. And be willing to straight up say, this is what I want.
We're spending more time together now. Maybe I need a little bit more of me time so that when we're together, I can show up in my full essence because I'm full inside. Or I need to spend more time with you because whatever it is,
we're just both in the house working, and we're here all the time working.
Yeah.
But we're never actually sitting down and being together, right? We're together all the time. but we're not present with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not present with each other, you might as well not be in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just getting clarity on what you want. And what you want is going to change throughout your entire life. We're not the same people we were when we were 10 years old, 20 years old, 40 years old.
And really working on whatever thoughts or beliefs or whatever are keeping you from being vulnerable enough to say what you want. Like, this is big in romantic relationships. This is so important.
Yes.
It's endlessly important. Like, you have to be able to say what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like more of, because you will never get it if you don't. You might somehow by chance, right? You might by chance, but it's pretty unlikely. And you can't be afraid of like, well, will my partner think I'm weird, right? Like maybe I tell Alberto something like, I would like to be tied up, right? Like maybe like I decide that, like I'd like to be tied up or something. Like I'd like to try something crazy and different. Alberto might be like, I'm so not comfortable with that. Like, absolutely not. Like, I don't want to do that to you, right? And then, okay, am I going to be like, that's it, I want a divorce? Probably not, But maybe I can then be like, well, where can we meet kind of in the middle? Like maybe that's like too far for you, but like, can we maybe do a blindfold or right? Like something smaller.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Asking what is it that I want? And then how can I what is it that I want about that? What is that going to do for me? What is that going to give me?
What is it? Why
how can we get that? How can we give that to me? How can I get that in the relationship? One of the things that, for people that are like in big periods of transition, so like whether it's, a woman in menopause, or if it's somebody that, some of my friends, like younger friends of mine in their 20s and 30s, when they have a breakup with a significant other, oftentimes they like kind of go through this little identity crisis of who am I without this person? And it's just the part of their identity that was a huge part of their identity. And this happens, I feel like, when the kids go off to college, that's another kind of natural times. Like, who am I, when my kids are no longer here? Yeah. When I'm not like taking care of them in the same way, like, who am I? Or somebody retires. Who am I when I'm not my job anymore? I'm not like, the partner. Who am I when, I lose my job? Like, who am I when I lose my partner? Like that, like those periods of time are, I think for folks listening to the podcast, a lot of folks listening to the podcast are going through or have recently gone through a transition like that, where it's like, this is so heavy on their mind, and it's like a time of rediscovery, of redefinition. And I'm really inspired by what you said, Berto. What was that? Go ahead.
Sorry. What's beautiful is you don't have to define yourself. Like, that's what's so beautiful. Like, I don't know who I am. I don't even know what that means, who I am. I'm changing all the time.
Yeah.
I'm changing all the time. Life is a state of transition, right? And I understand some transitions feel greater than others. It's like a more stark contrast between what I was doing and where I am now.
Yes.
But what a beautiful space to go.
Yes.
Maybe I never knew who I was. Right? And it was okay the whole time.
And it was okay the whole time. And just to chime in there.
The whole time. Why do I have to decide, like, this is who I am now? Just start with what brings me joy.
Like, just to chime in there.
What brings me joy? And what makes me feel good? What do I like? Just starting there. Not like who, right? We don't need to know who we are. Who we are is just like love. And then we're changing all the time what we like and what we want and what we're doing physically in this, experience.
Just to chime in there, because I want to go deeper on that. Like, what is it about being a employee at a company, being a mother, or being a significant other of another human being that is so a part of our identity that when we lose it, it's like, who are we now? As if who we were was not like, as if who we were when we were that employee or that mother or that significant other of the partner was not enough already, was not like that, was not enough, like, was not worthy, I guess I would say, like was not worthy. It's so interesting that it's natural. I think that we feel that way, that we feel like, somebody described it to me, like, I feel like there's a crater in me right now. After a breakup, I feel like there's a crater, but but I know it's just so interesting. It kind of makes me think of what you were talking about earlier, Berto, which is like the societal kind of story that you're telling yourself, like like of just trying to just defining yourself and just define yourself. And I love what you're saying, Hunter. It's just like, what do you mean defining myself? Like, what do you mean? Like I'm always changing. I'm always me. I'm like, I'm sort of like an act of constant creation and recreation.
Absolutely.
We redefine ourselves every day.
Yeah, all the time. I might literally really want to do something today that tomorrow I learn something that I'm like, I'm not doing that because like that could like hurt me, or that could like, right? Like, and I was like all about it today, but like tomorrow or next week, I'm like, oh my God, that's so dangerous. Like, why would I ever even have done that? Right. Like, and the thing I really wanted to do, like, isn't me. And my job isn't me. And my child isn't me. And my role to that child isn't me. And he isn't me. And how can we allow ourselves, right, to move out, and like as a whole society, right, to move out of this paradigm that this is the way life works, right? Yeah. You're born, you go to school, you graduate knowing nothing. You're expected to be an adult right away. You get married, you have a job, you have kids, you buy a house, you die with nothing. Right? That's the story of our society. This is how you do it. And if this isn't how you do it, then you're an outsider. Like, this is how we do things here. So if you didn't do it, if you didn't get the job, now you don't have the job, or you never had kids, or you never got married, like, God forbid, right? Then you haven't stayed within this box that we raised you to live in. As a society, we as a society raised you to live in. Right? And then on top of that box, we have another box around us we're supposed to live in. And that's what our parents taught us, what our siblings taught us, what our friends taught us, all these things that we've taken in as our truth, that we live as our truth, even though it might have just been like something we overheard. Like, there can be a free-floating thing in your space where you are constantly telling yourself that you're fat. You have body dysmorphia, right? Like, you're very thin, but you're always thinking, like, you look in the mirror and you're like, God, like, I'm so fat, right? Yeah. And that memory, even though no one ever told you you're fat, you're not fat. Someone could have said, you could have seen your mom in the mirror looking at herself. You were 3 years old. Your mom was looking at herself in the mirror and said, God, I'm so fat. And now that thought has stayed just embedded in there, and it's coming out as an adult out of you. And it's not even yours, but you're living it as your truth, right? So it's important for us to just step back and just see what we want for ourselves. What do you want for yourself? How do you want to feel?
So next, I want to segue. Go ahead.
I'm just going to say real quick, I think so many of the world's issues could be solved if people just decided to follow what makes them feel good.
Yes.
Instead of conforming to the societal norms.
Yeah, or the norms that your family put on you, or the norms of your friends, any of that. Like, I know it's even hard sometimes in social circles, right? Like, where like everybody's kind of this type of person in the group. And like, if I'm over here talking about hippie shit, like, they're going to be like, what's going on with her? Right? Like, but it's so important to show up always you. I love showing up in circles where I'm like the only one who's going to say the shit I'm going to say. and you know what? It almost always goes beautifully.
Yeah.
when I show up and say something that like no one else in that circle was going to say.
Yeah.
It's usually received so beautifully, or at the very least makes everybody go, huh. Which is great. Like, great. Now you're questioning the way you've always thought about something. Great. Right? How can we keep questioning what we've been taught is the only way? And start moving towards joy.
The next thing I want to ask you guys about is the relationship between emotional and sexual intimacy. Yeah. Could you talk about that? Like, you know, what's the connection in your experience and in your life? I'd be curious to hear what you guys think about that.
Oh my gosh, I could talk about this for days. Something that we talked about before we got on the podcast, you and I.
Yeah.
And you were like, you have to talk about that. And I somehow am remembering it, is that something we're taught, right? Like, we're all seeking connection. Really, we're all seeking connection. We're connection-based beings. Like, we work as community, and we all depend on other people. But what we have all been conditioned to view as like the pinnacle, like the most ever connected that we ever can be to someone, is having sex, right? And sex can be completely disconnected. Like, sex does not equal connection. And connection has to be there first for the sex to be like this incredible, mind-blowing, beautiful, juicy experience. If we don't feel turned on, and I mean like emotionally, like if I don't feel safe with him, if I can't express what I desire, right? If I can't be vulnerable, I cannot enjoy sex. If I can't say like, I do not like that. I don't like that kind of touch. Like, please don't touch me like that. I really like this kind of touch. Can you do more of that? Then I'm never going to get the fullest amount of pleasure that I could, because I'm not asking for it, you know? And so we have to first have this emotional intimacy where I can share things openly with you. I can tell you about my past sexual, maybe not history necessarily, but like traumas, right? So that you can understand how certain things might be very triggering to my body, right? Maybe at some point in my life, like, I was in a really abusive relationship, and he choked me, right? And so I'm going to flip out if you even touch my neck with your hand, right? And if you don't know, like, if we're in the middle of sex already and you touch my neck, and maybe you're not even going for like a choking move, right? But like, you touch my neck, I freak out. Now you're feeling triggered because you don't know what you did wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm freaking out because I'm reliving getting choked, right? And all of it could have been avoided by there being enough vulnerability between us that I've already shared that with you before we're going into sexual intimacy.
Yes. Can
you there has to be safety. Can I talk about what?
I was curious, can you talk a little bit about that from like the masculine and the feminine perspective, or the masculine and the feminine energies that like kind of come together and like in sex, like.
Yeah, I mean, the feminine.
Yeah.
I'll speak about the feminine, and Bercich can speak about the masculine.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. So the feminine needs romance and a story, and to feel cared for long before we're in the bedroom, right? So it can be the smallest things. Like, maybe you make me a cup of coffee in the morning, right? Like, if you're trying to get with me tonight, right? You wake up in the morning, maybe you make me a cup of coffee, right? And just give it to me, and like, we go about our days, and it's not a big deal. Like, that's it. But then throughout the day, like, maybe I'm in the kitchen cooking lunch, and you walk by and you just give me a kiss on the shoulder, right? These things build the anticipation. These things are slowly turning me on. These things are making me feel like you're paying attention to me, you're caring for me, right? And it doesn't have to be this massive gesture, but those things make me feel vulnerable and open to being vulnerable. Because you've already been showing me that you care throughout the day. And we also need we need more, the feminine needs more mental stimulation than just going to it.
Yeah.
We need it to be slow. The feminine is slow. The feminine is sensual. The feminine wants all their senses engaged, right? And I'm not really saying women and men, just the feminine energy, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
The feminine needs things to be slow and juicy and take your time and pay attention, right?
Yeah.
And so that's it. That's all I have to say.
I love that. That's
the masculine, I like to think of them as the ones and zeros, the masculine's more direct a lot. And the masculine always, they want to get it in, I'm here to challenge that paradigm with men, because I think a lot of men are leaving so much off of the table of their experience just by focusing solely on penetration. That's a beautiful space. And I think just to come at sexuality as something that is so sacred for men and women to be into that space and to slow down a little bit. A lot of dudes are ready to I'm ready to take my pants off. Let's get it. I think to slow down and to honor the feminine energy, take your time, really enjoy the space, really maybe light some more candles, bring other elements into it, smells, touches, lighting, visuals, bring other elements in that maybe you wouldn't even have thought of thinking of as an 18-year-old dude that knows nothing about having sex or good sex at all, because nobody's taught any of this stuff. We watch porn and then that's what it is. Yeah. That's not real. That's not beautiful sex. That's not sacred sexuality.
It's crazy how influential, how formative porn is on people's minds and their sexual experience. It's crazy.
Yes. I think another thing that's so important to touch on here is because of how everyone's been conditioned, right? It's also very rare for a woman to do to provide those slow things, to encourage that space for the man as well, to be the giver of that space, right? And what's crazy is most men have never been slowly kissed all over. Most men have never been treated in that way, where they are receiving pleasure. Yeah. Just receiving pleasure, just being in their bodies and just, getting all of that, all of those juicy moments, getting every drop of pleasure that there is. Fucking and having an orgasm is great, but it's nothing compared to what you can experience when you slow down enough and are present enough. You can have energetic orgasms that will blow your physical orgasms out the water.
As in non just orgasms that don't come from just penetration.
You're not having sex.
Stimulation.
You're not having sex at all. Maybe you're not even getting any touches to your genitalia at all.
Yeah.
Right? Just energy, just breath. Right? And this is a lot of what we teach in our tantric practices is really building up the energy and passing the energy back and forth.
It's a beautiful dance. And it's the journey, not the destination. Yeah. Everybody just thinks of it as we're here, we want to have orgasms. But when we sit in that space and cultivate that energy, there can be many orgasms of different types throughout the experience.
Yeah. And
Like
even when we take our time like that, even when we get to the physical orgasm, that physical orgasm is going to be mind blowing.
Million times better. Yeah.
Yes. Because we are living in this world, right? We're living in this world where like, oh, I just thought of wanting something. And then I'm like, got it. It'll be here in 3 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
It's the quickest convenient route to a destination.
Yeah. Like, yes. Like we want instant gratification. And that's how we're treating sex. Like it's just, some convenience.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, we have enough time. Like, let's just do it real quick. Like, which is fine. Like, I enjoy a quick little moment, like once in a while, right? But but it shouldn't just be this thing where like it's just when we have time. It's just or like we're really just doing it when like it's at the point that we like need need met, right? Or whatever. But like, I can't anymore. Really taking a conscious effort to spend time in this space where the goal isn't sex. The goal isn't orgasms. The goal is connection. That's what you want when you think you want sex. When you think you want sex, you want connection. When you think you want sex, you want connection. I feel like it's really important, so I have to say it.
Say that again. Just keep saying it. That's good. Yeah. That's so good. But just to kind of contribute on this topic, pace. In my limited experience, I'm not an expert at all, and I haven't studied it really. But in my limited experience, pace makes such a difference in sexual relationships and intimacy in general. It's pace, because it creates a space of just like trust, right? It creates a space of just like, let's just slow down and sit and be here with each other in this like awkward or vulnerable, like vulnerable. Yeah. Like, because like when you don't slow down, when you just keep going, right? Like, when you slow down, I guess I'll say it this way, when you slow down, you gotta give yourself a space to like let go of or release yourself, free yourself from these other ways of having sex that you kind of receive.
And so glad you're talking about that.
Yeah. Yes. Like you give yourself the space to like be free from these ways of having sex. And instead of just being like, hey, I'm just going to recreate something that I've seen in like a movie, which it's in an hour and a 90-minute movie, sex can only take a minute, right? It can only take 30 seconds. So you're literally just thinking that. And
it's like they come in the door, he throws her against a wall.
Yep. Up on the counter.
And then they immediately bang. Like,
they immediately bang, the guy finishes, and that's it. The guy finishes, that's it. End of story.
Yeah. There's no shot of her orgasm because it didn't happen.
No, there's not. I don't know why. I don't know why this is such a thing. But
but this is so important to touch on. I want to circle back to something real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's so important. This space of connection, this space of making your sexuality a sacred space, a sensual space, also creates a space where sex and intimacy become the most healing space possible.
Oh boy.
Hit me with that.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about sex, man.
Hit me with that.
That's good.
All right.
Keep going.
So, good job asking for what you need, right? So it does though, because it becomes this space where we can play, right? So let's say like, Berto and I decide to do a session. Like, this is what we call it. This is what we call it, even in our own life. Okay. Like a session is what we call it. And it's not like, and this doesn't mean sex. This means we're having a session where we're intentionally doing nothing but connecting with each other. What we do in that session can be so many different things. Okay. But let's say we're having a session where we're getting out all of these tools and toys, right? That are things like feathers and gloves that are really rough on the skin, and like all these things that give different sensations, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're moving through these things where where Berto's giving me all these different sensations, and maybe I have a blindfold on so that we actually take a sense away so I can focus more on what's going on in my body.
Mm-hmm.
And as he's doing this, of course, it's really important that he's communicating with me. Mm-hmm. How does that feel? Is that okay for you? Like, how's the pressure? Right? If he's massaging me.
Very important.
It's also equally important for me if he hasn't asked me yet. Maybe he just started and I like hate it, right? First of all, he's probably going to see my body reaction and stop anyway. But it's also really important for me to say, like, I really don't like that. Mm. Or like the other day, we were showing this to some clients, this practice. And he was touching me like something is called an air touch, right? It's like that you're barely touching.
Yeah.
And he was doing that down my arm, which is fine, except for this part of my body right here. Like that part of my body right there, when he air touches right there, like, I hate it. Like it feels traumatic in my body. I don't even know why, right? But so it was really important that I said, because I do like the air touches, right? I don't want him to never give me air touches again. Mm-hmm. But I don't want him to give me air touches right here.
Okay. And
so it was important to say, like, not just like, I hate that. Mm-hmm. Not just like, I hate that, don't do that. But like, I really don't like it when you do that type of touch here. Being very specific so that I still get the touches I want, but I also don't get those touches in a place I don't want. And as these things come
real quick, I want to make sure I'm tracking with you. So, Alberto, you also mentioned there that it's really important that you also kind of say, like, how is that feeling as this is happening? That you're like inquiring about this and like kind of questioning, like, hey, like staying engaged and connected and saying like, hey, how's this feeling? I want to know how this, like that.
Absolutely. The communication is so important because it can become a really traumatic space real quick if you're not checking in with your partner and you're just plowing through. And this is a thing.
And if for some reason your partner is feeling so triggered that they're not, sometimes I'm dropped into a space enough that even if something's bothering me, I won't like say something, or I'll think I said something out loud. Like it's weird. Sometimes I get in a very weird energetic space, right? Where I'm kind of like so in my body that I'm not in my head anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's really important when Berto is giving and I'm really dropping in to receive, it's very important that he makes sure that I'm still okay. Yeah. That I'm like consciously knowing what's happening and like that I'm, and that I'm okay. Cause sometimes I'm like in so much pleasure, right? I'm like a puddle of goo and he's like, are you okay? Right? Like, and he needs to know and I have to answer him. Right. And if I don't, usually he kind of like pulls back from what he's doing to make sure that I'm like still in the space. Because if, for example, if we're doing stuff like we're experimenting, we're tying each other up, or we're like doing something like that, this can bring up so much. It's insane. Okay.
Yeah.
Like being restrained can bring up all these things, control issues, trust issues, right? Like a ton of things. And you have to stay there without it being traumatic. You have to be able to almost talk or process or whatever these things as they're coming up for you to get to the goal of these practices, which is surrender, which is mental surrender. Like I'm no longer thinking about the fact that I'm restrained or whatever. I'm present in my body. I'm present in my body and I have surrendered resistance to the physical, to the mental things that are coming up, right? And so this is where that space can be insanely healing. Things you never knew that would come up are coming up now in this space. And it's not coming up like a fight though. It's coming up in softness. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these times, like you're going through this, you're feeling triggered, they're checking in with you, you're checking in with yourself, you're communicating with them. Eventually you get to the place of surrender and you're sobbing and it's the most beautiful release, right? Like the song Sexual Healing is like for real though,
right. Yeah.
But it's like sensual healing. It doesn't really even have to be sex.
and I think I just want to put in just a little thing for men and for women is to like check your ego at the door a little bit. Cause like, you're not gonna be perfect. This is a practice.
I was going to finish your sentence.
How do we get better at anything is practice. We're not going to be perfect. To be communicating that this may be a new experience, we got to give each other the grace of this may get a little uncomfortable for a little bit. We're going to talk about it. We're going to move through it.
Yeah.
And to not get offended if you get told no.
Yes.
Like, we can't take that no personally. That's them in their power saying, this is not what I want. And you got to respect that. That's a space for you to transition and be like, oh, well, what else can I do?
Yeah. I want to circle back to that.
Bounce right back.
Because it's also really important to play.
Have fun.
To play in this space. Like, this is a fun space. This is play, right? And so keeping it play, and that doesn't mean it can't get emotional and it can't get heavy. Like, and if it does, that's okay. Like, you flow wherever it goes, right? But the intention should be playful, should be exploring each other.
Yeah.
Should be exploring yourself, like finding out like what you like and what you don't like. And it's really important to be able to practice establishing what we want and don't want and like and don't like in a space that is playful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we can do it there where it's easy, then we can start showing up for ourselves like that in places where it's not as easy. Right? So if we're just playing and we know the whole point is trying different things and telling each other if we like it or don't like it, that takes all the pressure off of like the point of the practice is to play and find out what we like and don't like. So I already know that he's not going to be upset when I say I like or don't like something because that's the game we're playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And vice versa. And so now we've had some practice saying what we like and don't like. And we've had some positive reinforcement that we didn't get a shitty reaction to that. Mm-hmm. And so now maybe the next time we didn't go into a session. We just, went, I mean, we probably wouldn't, but like maybe we just have sex. Right. And then in that space, there's something that like, I've never said that like, really, I don't like, but I've never really said it because I didn't want him to like feel bad or feel like less of a man or like, which like, I'd like to circle back to this too. But I haven't said it. I haven't said the thing I don't like or the thing that I want more of. But now that we've like been playing this game where all the time we're telling each other like, I like that. I don't like that. I want more of that. I want less of that. Like now I might feel empowered enough to say the thing because now I know that I can tell him I don't like something and he can handle that.
Yeah.
So to circle back to the other thing, this is another thing that we're taught. This is another reason that women don't speak up, especially women don't speak up and state what they want, especially in their sexual life, right? Because again, like if we go back to the porn thing, the men in porn are bossing the women around, saying like, how do you like that? Like whatever, right?
Yeah.
And the women are hyperventilating. And that's it. Like they're just like doing the fast breath, the sex breath, right? Which no one breathes like that. And it's very hard to have an orgasm when you're hyperventilating because you're not relaxed. Mm-hmm. And so like, I can't remember what the statistic is, but if you look at the number of how many women have never had an orgasm, it is horrifying.
Really? It's like 40% or something?
40%?
It's higher than that, I think.
40? Higher than 40?
It's higher than 40%.
Well,
it's an insane percentage.
It's a crazy number.
It's a crisis, okay?
It is, but I have a theory about this.
And the reason is this paradigm we have of like what the man is in woman and what the man is in sex, what the woman is in sex, what the man expects from us, and also what we're supposed to look like, act like, and breathe like during sex. And I'm telling you what, if I'm supposed to be doing this breath like they show in porn where I'm going, right, that panting, I'm never going to have an orgasm. Because to have an orgasm, you have to let go. This is like the opposite of, right?
Yeah.
Like to have an orgasm, you have to breathe deeply. To feel pleasure, you have to breathe deeply.
Mm-hmm.
But we're taught that, like, even in movies, that's the only thing we see is women breathing like that. Right? And is men being really aggressive and not going slow at all, no foreplay, like.
I think a word too on especially getting into the space of releasing any expectations. It comes back to everything is like, now we expect it to look like this,
right,
for it to be good. That's bullshit.
And like, it's good if it feels good.
Yeah.
To both people. That's good sex. Good sex is when both people feel safe and vulnerable enough to say what they want, and that they are with a partner who will at least explore the idea of giving the other what they want.
Right.
It's a beautiful dance. It's a beautiful dance.
And it's the most fun space to play and practice these things that can also help the rest of our lives. If we can communicate well in our intimate world about our desires and our dislikes and like all of these things, our turn-ons, our triggers, it becomes easier in other spaces of our life. Because like you're already vulnerable, so it's a little easier to be vulnerable. Like you're naked, usually. So it's pretty vulnerable, right? Like it's just like as an animal, we're feeling vulnerable when we're naked. So we are already in a vulnerable space with each other. And so it's easy to like explore there and play there and say things there that maybe we wouldn't say.
I want to push to something you were saying about with what you see in porn, what you learn in porn. And I saw porn like pretty young, I would say. Like I think the first time I saw it was like a pretty young age. But I think I've heard all sorts of stories. My friends, some never really got exposed to it, and other people got exposed to it when they were young. It kind of varies, but I feel like our generation, millennial generation, with technology and smartphones and everything, it was like all of a sudden it came to you right there, right? And it was it was so accessible. But regardless of what time you got exposed to it, I feel like the thing that seems clear to me about porn is that it's a product that's designed to make you finish. That's designed to make you come, right? That is what it is. That's designed for it. And the breathing and the postures and the tone of voice and everything is designed for that. And it's for the guy. It's a product. There's some porn now that's more designed to be for women or for non-binary couples.
Is it slow and emotional?
I haven't watched it. I don't know. But I imagine
I probably won't. So
I imagine it's more about connection.
Yeah.
But for the most part, 99% of the porn out there is, for men. It's designed for guys, and it's to help you make you come, right? Because that's who's going to be clicking on the advertisements and stuff like that, and is going to be making the money.
Right. And the rough thing is, like, this is what I was trying to say, I think, was that women don't say what they need. Because if they're not living in this like weird expectation that they will be on the receiving end of what this dude has watched his whole life since he was 12 or whatever,
right?
Then he's not going to feel manly. Then he's not going to like me anymore. Then, right? Like all these things.
That's about
and
porn, I think. Like
we just think we have to fit in this box, and we also feel like we're competing with porn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'll say that again. All women are out here feeling like we're competing with that. And like, even how we feel about our bodies. Like, I won't go too deep into this, but the things that happen to women's vulvas when they're in the porn industry makes all of us out here think we're deformed. Like, there are actual surgeries called labiaplasties that happen all the time in the porn industry. And it makes their vulvas look nothing like any natural woman's. Like, I have actually talked to real life women who thought they were deformed, like who thought they had something totally wrong with their vulva. And it's totally normal. Like, it's totally normal, but the only thing they had ever seen was on porn. And so they never wanted their partner to even, like, they always had to have the lights off. They never wanted their partner to, like, look at them, right? Like, to look at it. And all of these things are affecting everybody. It's not just affecting women, it's also affecting men. Men aren't even able to give maybe what they would give because women are already feeling like there's something wrong with me. Like, I don't fuck like that.
Yep.
Porn star does. And you know what I'm saying? And I don't want that, right? Like, I don't want to be treated really roughly and like thrown around and whatever. Like, that's not what I want. I want slow and soft and all these things. So it's like, there's always this space, and I shouldn't say all women because I know there are women who have gotten past this space, right? But it's a lot of us. It's a lot of us that at some point feel this weirdness where like we're competing with something that doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm. That's not real.
We're trying to be this sexual being that does not exist.
And if I could add to that, I would say, and that's not even what you want. I would say, not even what people like. I think not even what the man really wants or the woman really wants. It's not what you want, but you don't know what you want.
Like, maybe once in a while you want it like that, but that is not the only sex you want to have. Like, that's so boring.
Yes.
It's out of control how boring that is.
That's like,
and also I would never have an orgasm ever.
Yeah,
right?
it's not.
But if you only did it like they do it, I would never have an orgasm.
So I wanted to, Alberto, I wanted to get your kind of closing thoughts on that because I wanted to hit on that point because I think that's like so right, which is like, well, look, like, yes, like this is a product that's designed for that thing that's kind of created. A lot of the products are designed for men, but it's actually not what you want. It's not.
Yeah.
So I guess in your work with like men, like what, I just feel like it doesn't create that intimacy. Like Hunter, you said, you know, when you think you want sex, you want connection, right? When you think you want sex, you want connection. And for guys who kind of, we live in this narrative where, you're taught to be very masculine. You want to be very tough where you're like, oh, you know, the connection is not really what I need. I really just want to get off. I love how you said, I want to challenge that. I want to challenge I want to challenge that for men and challenge you to seek something deeper and to seek something more real and authentic and like a real connection with who you're with, whether that's like with another man or with a woman, you know, again, I think these things are kind of like you were saying, Hunter, it's not men, women, it's the masculine and the feminine, right? It's like these elements of that everybody has both of those in them. Right. So,
and if we're speaking directly to the masculine,
yes, the
like
masculine
I want the masculine to know that this is also going to give you
more
orgasms, better orgasms.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't just slow down and experience something else. This is also, if you want to have the best getting off you've ever had, this is the way.
There's another way. If you're only doing it how you've seen it in movies and on porn, you're leaving so much off of the table.
Also,
you're robbing your own joy of it. You know, you're robbing your own experience. And why live your whole life like that? You know?
Yeah. And also like being able to receive, like to be the receiver, masculine.
Yeah.
To be the receiver of pleasure.
Yes.
Not just the giver. To be able to surrender to your partner, masculine.
Yep.
So that you can be given pleasure, so that you can be filled, right? So that you can be full to hear with that love and that pleasure. Like an orgasm is a very small amount of pleasure, actually. And it doesn't stimulate nearly all of the things in our pleasure centers of our brains as does slowing down, breath work, focusing on the energy, like all of these things. We're getting much more reward to our pleasure centers when we slow down. And so it's better than sex.
What is it? What do you call it?
It's hard to say that it's better than sex, but it is better than sex. The sex can be part of it, and that can be great. Mm-hmm. But the sex never even has to be a part of it for it to be this massive amount of pleasure between two people.
Yeah. I want to challenge the men and the women out there to release the expectation that it has to look like it does on TV, on social media, in porn, all that stuff. That gives everybody so much anxiety. It robs them of the moment. Mm-hmm. It makes sex worse just right off the bat, having expectations. Sometimes it might not even end in penetration. Maybe it'll just end with you guys cuddling or doing something else. Mm-hmm. And that's beautiful. That energy will cultivate and end in a much better place when you guys do end up making love.
Yeah.
So challenge yourself, challenge the expectation, release it.
And I also want to talk to the women a bit about releasing some expectations, because I know a lot of your listeners, Nick, are women, women in big transitions in their life. And so something I just want to leave the ladies with is stop comparing yourself to other women and stop thinking that there's something wrong with you. And especially stop thinking that there's something wrong with your vulva. It's beautiful. It's perfect. No two look alike. I encourage you to literally do a Google search of vulva. I encourage you to do it. Because, like, not just to look at them, right? But, like, so that you can see that you're perfectly normal and you're perfectly beautiful. And I know that as a woman, even though it might seem a little bit like I'm not trying to look at other girls, but when you do, it's going to be this beautiful moment where you see actually the beauty in it. And it might be the first time you've ever truly seen the beauty in it. And then you can see the beauty in your own, and the amount of confidence that can give you is going to also change entirely your intimate life even with yourself, right? If you haven't looked at your own vulva, do it. Explore her. Really, really look at her. Really explore her. Because our relationship with ourselves is really important, and our relationship with our vulva is really important. And it affects us a lot on how much pleasure we can receive and how vulnerable we can allow ourselves to be with our partner, right? It's a beautiful space to be in where your partner just witnesses you, just looks at you, just like really looks at it. Berto did this to me, and I was like, I'm so uncomfortable. What? Like what? Right? And I had to move through that. And then it was like, wow, this is like one of the nicest experiences I've ever had. Like, he was just admiring me, not asking anything from my body, not doing anything to my body, just like admiring it. And I had never had anyone do that. Even when he did it, I didn't really feel comfortable with it. I was like, that's so much, right? Like, that's so intense. Like, you're just staring at it. Like, why? But then I realized how much shame and weirdness we carry around how it looks and like what the shape is and like all these different things, because we only have such a narrow window of like any that we've ever seen. Like, we've never really seen other people's vulvas. So we don't even know. We're just comparing it to like only porn. That's like the only images really we have. And so explore yourself.
Love yourself.
And know that there's nothing wrong or weird about you. Everybody is so individual and so unique and so different. And that's what's so beautiful about us.
I could Vic, we got to bring you back for part 2 because I could continue this conversation for another 3 hours.
Amazing.
How do you guys have like the earth-shattering orgasms? How do you do that? Because I know that's like one of your things. You know, that's like one of your things that you're like, we can teach this. You know, we can like. Or is that a class that I got to take?
It is kind of a class. I mean, the crash course is literally just that. Slow down.
We just told you.
Slow down. Yeah, we just told you. Nick, weren't you paying attention?
Release the expectations. Slow down.
Yeah,
learn yourself. Learn your partner.
Slow down and check in with your partner. Like, check in with your partner. Ask what they like. Ask what, right? Maybe if you haven't really talked about it a lot, invite your partner to that space, right? Where you're like,
I want to have.
Do you like this?
Yeah.
Don't you like this? Right? Like, and so then they can start giving you answers, and then that's also going to allow them to feel more comfortable asking for what they want. But it's just slow down, really enjoy every second. Claim what you want. Claim what you desire. Claim it fully. Claim that you want all the pleasure that exists. Claim that you want your partner to have all the pleasure possible for them. Right? And start a conversation. Like, how can we do this for each other? How can we do this for ourselves? Take your time getting there. Let the energy build. Don't just jump right to having sex. I'm talking like more than an hour of foreplay. More than an hour of foreplay.
Amazing. Yeah.
And I don't mean going straight to touching my vagina. That's not what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't mean going straight to giving a blowjob. Like, that's not what I mean. I mean, like, so slow. I mean, just touching parts of him that are not like erotic zones, right? Like just touching, just really feeling him. Right?
And giving up that expectation.
Watching his body relax, like getting into a state where you're relaxed together. Not like so relaxed you're tired, right? But like getting into a state where your body is not like this, and you're dropped a little into the space, and you're feeling soft, and like stay there as long as you can until you feel like you're gonna just like explode from all the pleasure in your body, you know? And then still don't let it happen. Push past that point where you're like, I can't take it anymore. Like, I need you now. Like, push past that point.
Yes.
And stay slow.
Yes.
And then once you've pushed past it, came back to a space where you're containing that energy, then have sex. Yeah. Then work towards your orgasm, right? Not when you're already about to burst. Like, learn to control it. Learn to hold it up in here, in your heart space. To really pull it up and be present in the emotion of it all. And then when you finally get there, it's going to blow your mind.
And just like with anything too, it's practice. Find what you like and don't like.
Yeah.
I love how you said give up the expectation. Like do all of this and release yourself and the other person that you're with from the expectation, right?
Yeah.
From the I'm doing this because I want earth-shattering orgasms. That's great. That's going to get people to listen to the podcast and to click on headlines, right? They're going to be like, who doesn't? Who doesn't want the earth-shattering orgasms? But the key to the earth-shattering orgasms is to give up the need to have the earth-shattering orgasm, to give up the need that somebody giving that to you.
Like, focus on every single thing about it except the orgasm. Like, think about every single thing else about the experience other than the orgasm. Do that. And even if you don't have an orgasm, you're going to feel satisfied at the end of it. Like, you're going to feel amazingly satisfied because what you wanted, remember, when you thought you wanted sex was
connection. That's a good segue. The connection coaches. Last question for people that are listening and they want to follow along with what you're doing or they want to get connected with you. What's the best way to do that? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, if you are looking to have or reconnect with each other, to have that effortless communication and that just deep connection and that juicy intimacy, you can find us at The Connection Coaches anywhere on social media, or you can go to our website at theconnectioncoaches.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Hunter and Alberto, for joining us. Really appreciate both of you.
It was a pleasure, man. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having us. Can't wait for part 2.
Yes.
You too. And that's our show. If you enjoyed this episode, then please take a minute to subscribe on YouTube and Spotify so we can keep you updated each time we release a new episode. I'll see you next time. Thank you for listening.